In this video, I'm going to talk about what's in the new Indomitus box from Warhammer 40,000. Nothing's in this one, it's empty. But what about the points? Well, it's about that time again. It is time for a new 40K starter box from our friends over at Games Workshop. 9th edition is not exactly what they're calling it. They keep referring to it as the new 40K, but it's 9th edition. Last one was 8th, this one's 9th because it's the next one. So this is the box Indomitus. There's no N. It's not Indomitus, which I kept throwing an N in there initially, but it's not that. It's Indomitus. And it is Space Marines, Primaris, against Necrons in this box, plus, some other stuff like the rule book and things like that. It is a heavy box. There is a lot of stuff going on in here. This box is actually a little bit lighter because I've already built 14 Necrons, one of them being kind of a larger one, 3 of them being sort of big ones, and then 10 of them being regular old Necron warriors. Now, when I say regular old Necron warriors, I mean totally new Necron warriors. These are brand new sculpts, and they're a lot easier to build than the old ones. I'll tell you that for free, because I've built not a zillion of the regular old warriors, but a decent amount for Kill Team, and they were a struggle, and these new ones are actually quite nice. Now, the Skorpek destroyers and the Skorpek Lord that I built, they are maybe not as easy to build as I had thought. I kind of goofed one up bad and had to actually cut it apart to put it back together the right way. So just be very careful when you're building specifically the Skorpek destroyers. Pay attention to the order in which you put things together and pay attention to which way it's supposed to go, because some pieces will fit either direction. Once you start building it, you know what I'll talk about. So what is in the box? Well, you've probably already watched the unboxing the Games Workshop did on the Warhammer community site, but inside this box is, well, basically the same stuff. You've got a cardboard doohickey here that's got some cool artwork on it, and that's to help separate parts from other parts so the big pointy plastic parts don't scratch the other parts, I guess, like the book and stuff like that. So we got some motorcycle right here, Outriders or something like that. That is for the Primaris. I haven't built any of the Primaris yet. Like I said, I've been focusing on the Necrons. You'll see that this sprue is basically empty, and that's because I've been building some stuff. You've also got, what else? These lads here. This is I think the new Overlord, and this is the, I don't know, one of the Primaris guys. I can't think of all the names. This is the guy here with the skeleton. Here's his skeleton right there. That's the skeleton on the shield from the animation. He's got a cool base. He's the big boss. Again, just like most of the rest of the stuff coming out of GW these days, they are Tetrised together very, very closely. There were some parts that my clippers had actually a hard time getting into to clip apart. But the models are, spectacular, basically. And they are, there's some really cool stuff. Like, I really like this banner thing here that you can kind of see. That this guy's carrying. I think something or other ancient. I don't know. Anyway, the big Necron tall boys in there. Again, you've seen this stuff on their website, and they're great models. They're pretty much monopose. They go together just the one way, but you still do get some options in some of the stuff. But what about the other stuff, like the rules, the new rules that are now available in this big. This is probably the thickest book they've ever done. This is a thick boy. I think it's nearly 400 pages. Well, 370 at least. And full color all throughout. There's a lot of artwork in this book. There's a lot of photography of just huge battles, missions. Like, this is all fluff in the first part. You got a lot of fluff, which you always have in these books. Totally makes sense. Big, attractive pieces of artwork. And then there's just pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages about all the different armies, which makes sense. And then it's just a lot of this stuff. It's just pages of giant, all the armies, all the models. Look at that. There's, 1,000 models on that page? Maybe not. It's just pages and pages of it. And honestly, I could have done without that. This book would have been thinner, and I bet it'll be cheaper if I didn't have to just go past page after page after page of photography, fold out pages in some situations. It's, the photography is great, but again, we can see all this stuff on the website if necessary and look at all those cool pictures, blow them up even. One thing that's not in here is pretty much anything hobby related. There's very little, I've found very little so far that's been like, oh, this is how you paint or this is how you do stuff. And I'm assuming it's because they're basically saying, well, that's on the website. That's what you want to go look for. Go look on YouTube and Twitch and places like that. So I get that. I just kind of wish that the book wasn't so chock full of photography, which I'm going to maybe look at once. You know what I mean? It starts to get into, well, a lot more fluff and a lot more stuff, which is great. Again, a lot more photography, lots of models and things like that. Honestly, you have to page through 2/3 of the book until you get to the rules. So if you're just really looking for the rules, just know you gotta flip pages for a while. The rules. So this section gets into the stuff that is what the game is, and it is not a ton different, frankly, than the last edition. The differences between 7th edition and 8th edition are much more stark than the differences between 8th edition and 9th edition, in my opinion. There are some rules changes, certainly, but there's not a lot that changed. They did not change anything to do, as far as I could tell, with the order activation. It's still pretty much, I do my entire turn, then you do yours, and back and forth that way. And we stay in that same format pretty much back and forth throughout the entire game. There might be a tactic or something I can throw in there and spend a command point, and then that allows me to maybe go before you at some point or something like that. I didn't even really get into it that much. I just know that the normal base way where I do all of my stuff, you do all of your stuff, and we alternate back and forth for the rest of the game, it's basically still the same as it's always been. So honestly, for me, that's kind of a bummer. I would have really loved to have seen the activation kind of go to like the way it is in Kill Team, the way it is in Age of Sigmar, anything, a little bit of randomness, a little bit of, you have to think on your feet a little bit more. It's just, I personally kind of find it dull, the back and forth for the rest of the game. I like that roll off every turn to find out what's coming next. A new thing that they're doing all throughout the book is these kind of bullet point summaries of nearly every section within the rules. So here you've got engagement range, and then you've got a summary that shows that the engagement range is 1 inch horizontally plus 5 inches vertically. So that's your engagement. It's kind of like you're in contact with somebody. Models cannot be set up within engagement range of enemy models. You cannot ever be within an inch when you're set up that way. So that's just the summary. But then here is the kind of meat and potatoes of the actual, the rule. And the thing that's interesting is that these paragraphs that are above the summary are much more in depth than the rules, in my opinion, have ever been previously in a 40K book. There were plenty of times in 40K where there were two camps in a lot of things. You had rules as written, or raw, and you had rules as intended, or rye. Anyway, and the thing is that some people would say, well, it's obviously intended to be like this, and other people said, but it's written this way, and there would be constant fighting at tournaments and people's basements and wherever you might have played, at the game shop, whatever. Now, the idea is that these summaries, you can look at it and go, okay, cool, I get the gist of it. And then if somebody's like, no, I don't think it's like that, then you can go back and read the very in-depth, very clear rule, as written, and get a much better idea of what it's supposed to be. But you don't have to go through this entire paragraph just to find out what's going on. You can hit up this little summary, and it makes things quicker, it makes things easier when you're scanning the pages, and it makes it easier for people who've already been playing as well to be able to go through and go, okay, yeah, cool, they didn't really change that too much. There have been some other changes. I would say morale has changed a little bit. They've changed kind of like, you can now, when you're in coherency with somebody, it's actually a 5-inch vertical, so that's kind of interesting. They've also changed, depending on the size of your unit, so if it's a 5 or less unit, then you only have to be near one other person within 2 inches to be in coherency. But if it's a 6 or bigger unit, well, now you have to be within 2 other people. Kind of gets rid of that whole conga line thing. So if you've been paying attention to the stuff coming out of daily, out of Warhammer Community's website, you know all this stuff, basically. There's very little in here that's a new gotcha, and that's kind of interesting. One thing that's not in this book, and it's also not in the instructions on how to build the models, and it's also not in the Edge of Silence, which is a little booklet that basically gives you information about the new models that come in here. It's got all the Blade Guard Veteran Squad, Blade Guard Ancient, Assault Intercessor Squad, and all the different data sheets you need for the models that come in this. The one thing that's in nowhere is the points. There's no mention of the points in anything. Now, we've been told repeatedly that the points are all going up across the board. Points changes across the board, the points are going up. And we've also been told that the points will be in the new chapter approved that's going to come out the same day this drops, which I believe is the 25th or something of July. So there's going to be a brand new chapter approved. The thing that nobody seems to know is whether or not you'll be able to get access to the new points for everything, your current codexes, all that stuff, if you can only get that stuff through chapter approved. Or will there be a PDF, or will there be something else? That's going to be a big deal, because if people have to buy the book or the starter box, and then also they have to buy chapter approved just to find out, well, what the new points are for their orcs, or what the new points are for their Death Watch, I think that you're going to have some people who are going to be a little salty about that. I mean, admittedly, within our wargaming hobby, salt is pretty much kind of standard operating procedure, but I think you're going to have some people that are going to be real salty about that. Now, Games Workshop has also said that the new 40K app will also be released. Last I heard, it's going to be released on the day that the pre-order goes up, so you'll have access to all of that. Now, maybe the points will be in there. It would be a smart move on their part, in my opinion, for them to make that be the place where the points go, because then they can change the points very easily and people will just automatically get updated on their phone. Now, if you have to pay to see the points, again, that's going to be a bit of a probably a salt sort of inducing problem for a lot of folks out there. But again, we don't know. The current only answer we've gotten is that the points are in chapter approved. So keep that in mind when you are thinking about going to the shop. If we don't find out by the time these pre-orders go up, or by the time they come out into stores and things like that, if we don't find out where the points are going to be available other than just chapter approved, you're going to have to make a decision when you want to decide what you're going to be buying at the shop. And if you have to buy 2 different books, and the chapter approved seems to be coming in 2 different books now by itself. I don't think they're 2 separate books. I think you pay once and get both books, but they're separated for some reason. Anyway, if you have to buy all that stuff just to get back to square one with 9th edition, now I finally have the core rules, and now I finally have the points adjustment for my current army and all that kind of stuff, I think that you're then less likely to buy other accessories, new models, that kind of stuff. And that can happen all over the place, especially during this kind of pandemic time that we're all kind of stuck in. So what happens if this is your first rodeo? You're just now getting into 40K and you're interested in finding out whether this is a thing that you should try to buy or whether it's not, this box, this big Indomitus thing. Well, okay, number one, if you're not interested in Space Marines or Necrons, then I would tell you probably you don't necessarily have to buy the box, because the big honkin' rule book, not this version specifically, this one doesn't have a logo on it. You can see here, there's just this really cool piece of artwork. It's got the logo here, but otherwise it's not on the front. There will be another version of this book which will have exactly the same stuff on the inside. It'll just have a slightly different cover, and that will also, from what Twitter has said, that will be available also on the day that this box comes out in stores. So if you don't want Space Marines and Necrons at all, well, then that's a good thing. You could, it's not, if you could still buy this book separately. I'm not saying it's a good thing that you don't like Space Marines or Necrons. I mean, I'm not judging. I like Necrons a lot. I like Space Marines, but I don't like playing them too much. It's kind of weird. Anyway, look at that. Look at getting that book and then go from there if you want to go that way. But if you do want one of these, 2 sets, I mean, these models are pretty spectacular. I've been really enjoying putting together the Necrons. Like I said, I got a bunch of them ready to go and set up. You can see here, I've got them now, built and textured their bases. And then I've also got them primed, and I'm going to be taking them onto Twitch actually on Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central. So when you're watching this, if you're watching it right after it launches, 9 a.m. Central on Friday, I'm going to start painting those Necrons. There's going to be a lot of dry brushing and a lot of silver, a lot of fun, hopefully. But yeah, they're great models. The Space Marines look great, and I'm interested in building them. I'm definitely interested in seeing if the Assault Space Marines, the Assault Primaris, I want to know when they're going to be rules for Kill Team for those guys, because I really want to bring them into Kill Team. They look like they're going to be a great time. I think that most of the stuff that's Necron-based seems like it's going to be, at best, elites. Maybe there's going to be a commander, but a bunch of that, like that new tall boy from the Necrons, I don't feel like he's going to be something I'm going to be putting into Kill Team anytime soon. He's like bigger than like the Armiger, like Walker from the AdMech. Even the Scorpack Lord is probably just about the size of a like a dreadnought. So he's not going to be showing up, I don't think, in Kill Team either. So if you're buying these models just because you think they're awesome and you want to paint them, then this is going to be a good box to do that with. Maybe you could flip the book if you're not even playing 40K, flip it on eBay, see how that works out. I bet you could make some money. But if you're interested in getting into 40K and you do want to play, or maybe you and your friend want to play and you think, well, I'll take one and you take the other, again, this is going to be a good deal. If you're already playing 40K and you're not interested in either of these, then obviously you're probably just going to try to buy the book. Again, not this version, but the insides are exactly the same. And then you'll be able to start playing with the stuff you've got. The big question is going to be the points, though. I'm still wondering about whether or not we'll be able to get the points for free or whether they have to come through in the chapter approved. That's going to be the big thing we got to wait for. And so far, as of Thursday at 6:25 p.m., we don't have an answer yet. So maybe before this comes out tomorrow morning, less than 12 hours away, maybe we'll find out. But I don't know. If we do find out at some point, put it in the comments below. Look to see if somebody else already has. But if there's a link or some sort of article or something that mentions it, throw it in the comments below. So hopefully we'll see you on Twitch, and I'll be painting some Necrons. Come by and check that out. Twitch.tv/tabletopminions. Hit a follow, and then you'll get a notification when I go live. And, if you're interested, again, check that out. And if you're interested in 9th edition and you're thinking about getting into 40K at this time, you can either buy the box if you want to have one of those armies, or you might just want to buy the book if you've got some other army that you're interested in. But there's going to be a lot of options, and there's going to be a deluge of more products coming out over the next probably 3 months. So keep an eye on that as well.